We got 5 minutes on the clock. What is your name and what is your podcast show?
My name is Matt Certo, and the podcast show is Brand Narrative.
Nice. Now, you are a returning champion. I interviewed you about 3 or 4 years ago for Orlando Entrepreneurs. But talk to us about your new show and why you started it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm happy to be a returning champion. I didn't know I won the first time, but why we started our show, my marketing agency, Find Some and Win More, during COVID, we felt like we were having a hard time connecting with clients and prospects that we normally would be in touch with. We would normally be going out to lunch with, we would normally be having dinner with, just spending time together talking about their challenges, how we could help them. And this was a way of connecting that we tried to see if we couldn't reach them, reach in those conversational ways that we had before, but just do it through a different format.
Yeah, super cool. So, what have you learned? Because in the time of COVID, right, everybody's on lockdown, nobody's doing face to face meetings. And if you allow that to happen long term, your pipe drive or your pipe drive, your pipeline just could disappear. So, you created this. And what did you learn from this scenario of connecting with potential guests and audiences and potential clients?
Sure. Well, one thing I learned was that some people are podcast people and some people aren't. And maybe that wasn't as much I learned as much as I confirmed. I happen to be a podcast junkie. So I love listening. I learn a lot through listening. It occupies a lot of my downtime when I'm driving or walking the dog. And so there are people like me that I found within our client base and prospect base, but not everyone likes to listen to podcasts. Some people think they're a waste of time. But I learned that for those that like to listen, this is a great way to stay connected with them or a great way for them to engage with us in a way that they wouldn't normally.
Yeah. So when you created your show, you had this in mind, like we got to keep the pipeline going. We've got to keep this connection going because you're such a relationship driven person, right? So
Yes.
you did this and like talk to us about maybe some of the effects of your show as you started it.
Well, what we found was it was a great way to meet people. I had one person say, you should talk to so and so because they would be a great guest for your podcast. Well, that person became a client. Never would have thought that. One person we invited on blindly because I thought their story was very interesting. I thought I would be ignored, but that person accepted, came on the show, and then ultimately became a client. That wasn't why I did it, but it was a side effect, if you will,
Yeah.
of the process.
Yeah. Now you could cold call people all day. Hey, would you like to use our marketing services with blah blah blah, or would you like to be on our podcast show? And then that allows you to qualify them. Would I even like working with them, and could I help them? So you
Sure.
did this, and it worked for you multiple times. So give us some ideas on what you've done for the podcast show in terms of like what were some of the wins other than connecting with people and maybe some deals.
Well, the big win, I'm a curious person by nature. So to me, there's an innate win, which is I get to ask people about cool stuff. Like I read an article in Advertising Age about the show Yellowstone and how product placement was being used. And I love that show. And there was a professor at the University of Indiana, a marketing professor, who was asked about her perspective on this because she's an expert in it. And I just emailed her and said, hey, would you like to come on and talk about this? And she did. She was like, I love doing this and I'd like to do it for future concepts. So, having that opportunity to scratch the curiosity itch, it was a real plus too.
Yeah. Product placement is huge, man. If you look at any of The Rock's videos, he's always has like, here's my products, here's my services.
Oh,
So
yeah.
really cool of how you put that together. What does the future look like for you and your podcast?
Well, we're going to continue to focus on looking at topics we're interested in,
Mhm.
looking at people that we're interested in. And then also we have some people inside that we want to start inside our company that we want to start bringing into the fold also because they're saying really cool things in staff meetings, really insightful things. And I look at that and say, gosh, she'd be great on our podcast to explain that to customers. And we haven't done that to this point. So it's been a slow burn for us, but we're going to keep the momentum going.
Cool. So if people want to know more about you and your podcast show, what's the podcast and where can people find it?
Sure. Well, brandnarrative.fm is the podcast, and it's sponsored by our agency, Find Some and Win More, findsomeandwinmore.com. And we're all over social media. If you want to look at us on Instagram, you can just look for Find Some and Win More. And we're on LinkedIn as well. So
Sounds good. Hey, we did this all under 5 minutes. Audience out there, reach out to our guests, say thank you, connect with them, especially if you need some help. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you all on the next episode.